gather round me, children, I'll tell you the news. Don't worry about the names or dates, you already know it's true. Your doctor hates your baby, the prime minister's a ghost, and all them folks are sailing here 'cause they're in love with boats. Superfoods can save us from all our evil sin. JFK and Elvis own a bar in Wisconsin. And vaccinations were created by the CIA to steal votes from Bernie Sanders and turn your babies gay. So click the link you think you'd like and get tooled for a fight against those lefty fascist communists who are leaning too far right.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Another Fake Newscast. I am Paul.
And I'm Gerry.
So yeah, we've got a good one up today. It's going to be on terror and all things terroristy.
And what's going on in the Middle East at the minute with Saudi and Yemen, with Qatar and Saudi.
Terror.
And some terror and stuff, yeah.
I'll call Qatar, and Gerry will call Qatar. It's
well,
the same thing.
Qatar's what it's called.
I'm going to call it Qatar.
It's Qatar. It is Qatar. That's how they pronounce it over there. I've been.
Right, so first and foremost, as ever, I'd just like to say thanks to everyone who's supporting us and listening to us. It really means a whole lot to us. You can get us on Facebook at PGMcast. You can get us on Twitter at PGMcast. You can get us on our webpage, which is
www.notanotherfakenewscast.com.
If you go on to patreon.com/PGMcast, you can come and support us, and the support means the whole world to us. We've got about 6 or so patrons at the moment, and we love them all. They're in our Discord server, and we enjoy it.
I think that's what people need to know is we're building a community here. So if you get involved in the Patreon, if you donate, then you get access to the Discord server and you can chat away. There's a lot of cool people in there. People are sharing links, sort of continuing talking about the ideas that are in the podcast, as well as just talking about stuff that comes up, whatever you're interested in. And it's a really good sort of mix of folk in there. So yeah. Yeah,
another really good thing is we get to hang out with Gordo over at Those Conspiracy Guys. So as ever, plug Those Conspiracy Guys and plug the Disaster Artists. Both of them we spend a lot of time chatting to. And they're properly good guys. Their podcasts are particularly funny and particularly informative. They're very enjoyable.
Yeah. Thanks to the new patrons. Thanks to Paul. And thanks to Northern Gord for getting involved and getting on board. And thanks to, everybody out there who, tags us and stuff, sends us articles. Particular shout out to Bobby, to John McMillan, to Grum for, all the stuff, and to Davey for all of his journalistic advice.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes further to say all the people who do contact us, it actually means the world to us. The fact that people contact us with actual wanting to know our opinion on things, or want to show us news that they've discovered, or want to see how we stand in politics and ask for advice, it's nice. It makes you feel special. Makes you feel warm inside, Gerry.
I always feel warm inside because I drink whiskey.
I always feel warm inside because I'm fat.
You're not. Don't be so harsh on yourself.
So, and hairy. Fat and hairy.
So yeah, lots of insulation is what you're saying.
Yeah, like a whale.
I'm putting the beef on myself at the minute. Michelle's pregnant, so I tend to just put on weight.
I just drink colours of wine and booze.
But I was just away for 2 weeks there, couldn't drink, so equilibrium. I just need to get in the gym. Anyway, this is neither here nor there.
That was a bit off subject. So anyway,
So as Paul said, this month we're gonna be talking about
terror
and the Middle Eastern situation, but we're gonna start off with just a little recap of what's been going on in the past month. Obviously, there was a general election.
Yeah, so for those in America, for those who haven't really followed it, for those who don't really know what's going on, none of us do, because it went fucking mental. We had a Tory government who then thought they were going to get more of a Tory government, who managed to then cause a snap election to get less of a Tory government, and now they found £1 billion to give to a kind of terrorist-linked fascist kind of part of the British government that is the DUP in Northern Ireland. They gave them £1 billion, so now they've kind of got a Tory government. Essentially, the DUP are like super Tories.
They don't like abortion or women in general. I don't think
they're not a huge fan of women having rights over their own body.
Yeah.
Or people not believing in God.
Or gays.
Science.
They don't like gay people.
Or gays.
Or transgender or anything that they would consider.
They don't believe in global warming.
Oh yeah, So
climate change at all.
They're basically kind of like, people from, I don't know,
Puritans.
The deep south of
fundamentally
America.
Puritans. They're essentially...
They're Christian fundamentalists.
Aye, yeah, I mean, they're fundamentally Christian.
Yeah. They're, and, they've been involved in a fair few controversies over the years. They have been linked to loyalist paramilitary organisations,
But wait, Jerry, did Jeremy Corbyn not get grief for being linked to the Republican paramilitaries because he spoke to them once, on a Tuesday?
I mean, he had a dialogue going with them, yeah. So he was accused of having terrorist sympathies, basically being a terrorist sympathiser. It was all over the Sun, the Daily Mail, the Daily Express.
Was that not a big
the
talking
morning of
point
the
coming
election.
up for the election?
It was, yeah, but it doesn't seem to be such a big deal now that the Tories are in bed with people who sympathise with the other kind of terrorists.
The idea of Theresa May and that riot from the DUP being in bed together is one of the most disgusting things that could fucking ever be put into your head as an image.
Yeah, I'm gonna gloss over that because
I heard she'll sell you a boiler though.
Well,
she'll shift you a boiler.
That's the way to speak about Theresa May. She was involved in a bit of controversy this year, because there was sort of backroom dealings with government subsidised heating initiative, and it turned out she was giving millions of pounds to people that she had business ties with and stuff.
Like her mates and that, she'll just buy you. She'll get the government to buy you a boiler, and then you're like, no, get the boiler.
Yeah, so because of that, she had to step down as leader of Stormont.
No, so she had to step down as being the First Minister.
Yeah.
But she's still allowed to be in charge of the party.
Yeah, and they had another election which came back with pretty much exactly the same results they had beforehand, which was a bit of a stalemate. So she's back as being the First Minister, I think.
I mean, there is an...
No, actually, because they're now, at the moment, Stormont isn't doing anything, so there are talks that there might be direct rule from Westminster. The whole idea of the government having a deal with the DUP has been described in some circles as being an infringement of the Good Friday Agreement. By
some circles, you do actually mean the majority opposing party in Northern Ireland and the entire Republic of Ireland.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be objective here, but when you look at it in terms of what the Good Friday Agreement is supposed to represent, Westminster are supposed to remain neutral on Northern Ireland, not supposed to show favour to one party or another in Northern Ireland, and it's certainly on the face of it.
So giving them £1 billion?
Giving them £1 billion, and
see, anyone that gives me £1 billion, they're my favourite.
Yeah,
always.
I would certainly consider that if somebody was giving someone £1 billion, that doesn't really make them a neutral.
No, if somebody gave me £1 billion, I imagine I could probably do what I want around their house.
Yeah, I don't imagine that anybody who is neutral towards me is going to give me £1 billion. However, I am open to the idea.
Jerry, I've met people that like you that want to give you £1 billion.
Everybody that likes me,
even if they had £1 billion,
has ever given me £1 billion.
Right, no, but even if they had £1 billion to give you, I know people that like you that wouldn't.
Well, that's not very kind, but I take your point. So that's the sort of situation we're in. There's actually there are people are talking about taking the government to court for infringing the Good Friday Agreement at the moment.
Actually, it has a big problem with Brexit as well.
Well, yeah, because the Irish foreign minister, essentially, I don't think that's his actual title, but that's basically what he is in Irish politics. What did he say again?
He said that essentially the government doing this with the DUP would be infringing. Would be an infringement on the Good Friday Agreement, and if they showed any infringement on the Good Friday Agreement, they were then going to block any Brexit negotiations.
So any deal with Britain, they would veto it.
And they have to, so, just quickly, and this is not what we're focusing on today, but just give you a quick summary, this is how straightforward it is. Britain want to have a deal with Europe. Europe don't want Britain to have a deal because it sets a precedent for other countries to then try and negotiate their own deal with Europe. So they were already on the back foot. Now Ireland have said that no matter what Britain want to put forward, Ireland are going to veto it, which Britain need them to not veto it anyway because it has to be an agreement by the EU. So there's now a scenario where the EU don't want to give Britain anything because that's bad for the EU. And Ireland don't want to give Britain anything because that's bad for Irish relations at the border with Northern Ireland and stuff. And Britain keep on telling the British public that they're going to be given like fucking sweets every day from the EU, and like every day fucking Angela Merkel's going to come round and tuck us on at bed at night, and other fucking outlandish promises that mean essentially nothing because they can't give them, because as soon as they give Britain worthwhile deals, then Spain decide they want a better deal and Italy decide they want a better deal.
Well, do you not think that there's certainly a possibility that the sort of repetition of the phrase "no deal's better than a bad deal" is just them gearing us up for the fact that we're not going to get a deal?
No, it's going to be absolutely
and so that when that happens, they can say, "No, this is better than a bad deal. We've got no deal. Yay!"
I seen an argument put forward to me as well, where they were just like, "But what if then Britain can then go to other countries and say, and then they can start their own trade deal, so they can have a trade deal with, say, for example, South Africa." And they've got something they want to trade with South Africa, so they have their own trade deal with South Africa out with the EU. I would argue that the EU say to South Africa, if you give them a good trade deal, then we're going to start looking at our agreements with our trade deals because they need to be punished for what they've done, and we will give you a better trade deal with the EU.
Well, but that's kind of hearsay. You don't know what's going to happen.
No, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that the logic that Britain's going to be able to get a better deal off of other countries because they're going to be in control of it only stands if you don't believe that the EU are going to.
I think that it doesn't stand for a different reason. I think it doesn't stand because you're bringing more to the table by offering people an opportunity to deal with and to trade with what, like 300 million people or whatever that's in the EU in its entirety. I'll need to get the exact number on that. I'll put it on a link somewhere. I think it might be 250, 300 million, something like that. But you are giving them the opportunity to do trade with a community that large, or you can do trade.
56 million people in the UK, and the only thing that they deal in is arms.
Service industry and like whiskey and fishing and shit like that. But like, I don't want to play what Britain has down because, you know, we are like world leaders at some things, particularly like arms industry. We're the second.
We're not world leader. We're second.
Yeah, we're second. Yeah, but you know, world leaders, we're up there for certain things. But yeah, it just stands to reason mathematically that you're bringing less to the table and offering somebody the opportunity to trade with, you know, like you said, 65 million, 60 million people in the UK versus a community which is, you know, many times larger than that. And it's much more diverse in terms of what they can trade with you as well. And
that's kind of summarised where we are with UK stuff. The only other big thing that happened was obviously
Grenfell Tower.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We're not going to make jokes about it.
We're not.
Jokes about other things. This is a very unjokeable thing. I mean, it's
brutal, man. It's awful. There's a few sort of fake news things that have been kicking around about that. I think Squawka, or what are they called? No, Squawk Box. Squawk Box had, there was a thing that kind of went sort of slightly viral near the beginning, saying that the government had issued a D notice, which was squashing the number. It basically was saying that they had, it was like a security, a national security issue, and it meant that they were preventing the press from reporting it properly, but that was complete bullshit. That didn't happen. There are, however, you know, there's been a lot of people talking about the fact that, you know, the locals on the ground are saying that, you know, they think that
Hundreds of people.
We're into that, somewhere between 100, 200 people.
I mean,
have probably
300 to 400 with some of the claims.
Yeah, but it certainly seems that it's going to be a lot more than 80 people that they've reported at the minute. But if you look into the reason, like Sadiq Khan is one of the people who was like just yesterday or
Mr.
today,
London.
the Mayor of London was kind of complaining about the fact that the local people, they don't have any trust because they're not reporting the numbers correctly. But I think, and Lily Allen was on the telly saying that they were trying to micromanage
she was.
people's grieving, and the media was downplaying the number of deaths.
Carla was on as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Carl was talking about it and stuff as well. And I can understand where they're coming from, but it's not like a plane crash or a train crash where you've got like a passenger manifest. You know how many people were on the train. They don't know exactly how many people were there. There has been talk about the fact that some of the people that were staying there may have been illegal immigrants, so they might not be as willing to come forward to the police and say that they have died
you then have
whatever.
Visitors, you then have friends, you then have cousins, you've got lots of other variables, you've got whether or not people were either in some of the built flats because they don't know if the flats were even occupied at the time.
And they're following, it's internationally recognised Interpol disaster victim identification standards, so they've been in place since the 80s, and it basically means that it's not enough for a family member to identify somebody. It has to come from forensic evidence and stuff, and also because it's a criminal investigation, they need a forensic pathologist to provide post-mortem evidence about the cause of death and stuff like that. So, but I think that they still could be reporting, how many people. Well, this is how many people have died. This is how many people have survived. We know that we have this many survivors, so we estimate that there are X amount of people unaccounted for. But I can understand that the police are wary of speculating about it.
I mean, the thing is, there's always going to be a scenario, because it's such a national tragedy, and you have to always remember that it is a national tragedy what happened, that they're going to try and play down the number, not out of badness, but just out of if they can't prove that there's 200 people dead there, but they can prove they found 80 bodies, then they're going to tell you 80 bodies, even if they've got a feeling that there's going to be more bodies in that, until they can show it, because it's so.
And they're still going through the wreckage, there's still going to be bodies in there. I would be
shocked if that 80 almost doubles. I mean, if we're in the 100 to 150 range by the time that they're finished, that number is the number that I'm roughly expecting it to be at. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so many variables in this. You know what I mean?
And there's a lot of people I saw a girl who is she was a local Green Party candidate and stuff, who was sort of saying that it seems like they're drip feeding the numbers out, and we're not going to get. We've been told that we won't get
next year. Next year
we won't have it this year. So there've been suggestions from people that the government don't want to release the real number until people have kind of moved on to something else to be upset about.
I mean, with all that being said, and without actually putting a blame on anyone or anything like that, there is a lot to be said. There's a lot of people that are going to have to be held accountable regarding the materials that were getting used, the way that it was built, the stuff that wasn't passed regarding fire legislation, and that's going to be the backlash. That's what we're going to see.
It is, but corporate manslaughter laws are such in this country that even if they're able to go, it was this guy's fault, they won't be able to bring any criminal charges against him. It's a corporate manslaughter is the charge that's been levelled here, so it's like a fine. And I think there might be a maximum fine, but that's all that they can get hit with. It's money. Nobody can be held personally responsible, because that's the way that the law has been set up to protect fucking companies and fucking. I mean,
you're saying that, but see, imagine it. So I understand that. See the guy who made the decision to do it. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm totally not defending a guy who killed tons of people in a fucking building, by the way. But all I'm saying is you know what it's like working in a company where you've got this, where we all kind of sit in an almost middle management type scenario. Do you know what I mean? You're certainly not at the top, but you're not at the bottom either. You've got some guy at the top telling you you're having to do this and this, and you have to use this, so you do it, and but you're the person who's told it to go ahead and get done. So technically, on that paper, you're the one that signed off on it, and you're the one to blame. But it's not necessarily that guy. That guy's only worked to specifics that he's worked to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you can show the instructions came from the guy above him, or here's something you need to think about, right? If people know that they can be personally held responsible, if you fuck this up, you can go to jail. That is going to affect people's decision making. Am I wrong?
No, obviously.
Right. So if you change that law and say that, you know, it's no just corporate manslaughter, you can be individually prosecuted for it. If you kill a bunch of people by building a structure to a poor standard, not meeting regulations, etc., you can go to jail. You're going to be a lot more careful about the way that you conduct yourself, potentially.
I would agree.
So yeah. Anyway, that's the Grenfell Tower. A wee bit of fake news stuff. A wee bit of, I don't know. Like, it's hard to know where to stand on it. I don't like the idea of people political point scoring out of a tragedy. I think that, you know, you would certainly point towards the fact that, you know, emergency services, etc., have done a great job in this country in the past couple of months with the sort of terrorist issues that we've had in London, the bombing and stuff in Manchester, and the Grenfell Tower, the fire services, and you had the Tory party cheering the fact that they'd voted in cuts to emergency services.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a horrible video. We'll get that up so you can see it as well, because what a shower of assholes. I mean, there's nothing else to say about that other than they're a shower of assholes. But that is what it is. I mean, more of that's going to come out in due course, and we will probably have an episode that we can focus a bit more on it once we have more information. What we don't want to do is jump into this with a relatively small amount of information. I would also like to apologise right now. I'm quite not well, so you may hear me cough from time to time. That's when my throat is sounding all husky. And
at least he's no vaping.
At least I'm not vaping, you know what I mean? So, you know, good bit of bad, isn't it? So, that kind of brings us on to kind of covered everything, so we go on to our main topic of discussion for this evening.
Right.
Terror!
So where do you want to start?
Definition of terrorism.
Okay.
So, terrorism is the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Never is it advertised when we are talking about it in the UK or in the US as a political endeavour. Now, no one ever says, fucking, this guy shot up a gay club because of his political beliefs. So the way that terrorism is defined to what terrorism is sold to us now is something very different. Terrorism to us now is essentially what, like...
It's about religion a lot of the time.
People being scared to do shit after someone done something bad.
Yeah, and generally the stuff that's been done bad has been done on the basis... It's not been done for political means, like... So Anders Breivik in Norway, was he killing all those people to spread a political message? Like, I suppose he kind of was white supremacy, but is that a political message as such? He was just a nutcase.
It was a nutcase, and it's much the same as in any other. Like, just after what happened in Manchester when the kids in the school bus in the Middle East got blown up, that wasn't really to further political aims. I mean, there was like but it's still branded as terrorism, but it's essentially just a fucking civil war that covers most of the Middle East at the present moment, a sectarian war, if you will, that covers most of the Middle East at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's not really furthering a political aim. So just remember, when people talk about terrorism, they're not talking about terrorism, they just don't know what word to actually use. Terrorism's been rebranded.
Okay, but if we forget about what terrorism is supposed to mean, and we realise that we are actually talking about mainly sort of Islamic extremism, you know, guys blowing themselves up, suicide bombings, guys attacking concerts in Paris and Manchester, guys coming at the public in vans with knives in London.
But see, the thing is, so first we have to look at that, right? So there's a couple of things there, right? So in the Middle East, terrorism, the terrorism that we are showing, the terrorists that we are fighting are ISIS, ISIL, Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda. You know, the classic, you know, the big ones, the ones that are as home names as McDonald's and fucking Hoover. Do you know what I mean? Like, they operate from a specific sect, for the most part, of Islam.
Right.
Right? Now, we'll get back to that in 2 seconds, but the stuff that happens in France and happens in the UK and happens in America, it's more... It's franchise terrorism. That's what that is. That's just people who aren't necessarily following a specific sect, but have wanted to commit an act of terrorism in the West. You know what I mean? Essentially, a guy, we'll use Islam as an example, but a guy who worships any sect of Islam and wants to commit an act of terror in the West, they commit that act, and ISIS and the likes will take ownership of it, and they've said they'll take ownership of it.
Yeah, they'll claim it.
Which is essentially, like I said, it's franchise terrorism. Do you know what I mean?
But also it gives the impression of like a
overarching baddie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
a well organised network.
When it's not. But all I mean is, when you look at it, like there is 2 different noticeable scenarios. Like the small pockets, the lone wolves, the general lunatics, that type of group of people that are performing stuff in the Western world, generally speaking, as a rule, they are not linked, or if they are linked, it's quite loosely linked to the big terrorist organisations who are in the Middle East. It's not necessarily the same thing. They'll take ownership from it, and then they'll have people like Tommy Robinson and stuff like that on the street, like talking about how they're coming over here and they're doing this and doing it, but that's not what's happening. They are guys from like fucking Stoke-on-Trent and Sheffield who are completely disenfranchised with the world that's around them, and meet a couple of other people who like that. They commit an act of terror, they essentially kill some people in some way or another, and then it's taken as ownership. It's not, don't be fooled by the fact that these people aren't part of ISIS.
Yeah, they've
ISIS
not phoned up headquarters. I went, alright,
are we good to go?
Alright, Mr. ISIS, will we go do this thing?
Aye.
They're doing it off their own back, essentially.
And ISIS not want you to believe it, because it then means that they believe they're more powerful and that there's something to be scared of. EDF, not the energy company, EDL and Britain First and the likes.
Libel!
EDF, Scottish Power. No, but Scottish Power could easily be a white supremacist group.
Yeah, it's funny actually, now that you mention it, I'm realising that all these energy companies, they do sound a bit terroristic.
They do. We'll come back to that another day. But but they also want you to believe that there's this big overarching terrorist organisation because it furthers their agenda. That there's
Scottish Powers.
Scottish Power, EDF Energy. None of them. I can't begin to stress that. That's just a joke. But yeah, EDL and Britain First and stuff, they want you to believe that there's this big overarching, because they essentially, in the nicest possible way, don't like brown folk, and they use this as a reason to be justified at not liking brown folk.
Yeah, to legitimise their stance.
Instead of just saying, I'm racist.
A lot of people buy that shit.
No, but the reason that they buy it is because it's been sold so well. But let's not look at the stuff that's happening in the UK, because the stuff that's happening in the UK does have a knock-on effect from what's happening in the Middle East. So we really have to look at the Middle East.
Yeah.
And what the fuck is going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, and basically when you start kind of looking into what is going on over there, you kind of quite quickly realise that you have very fucking little grasp of what the fuck is going on over there. Like, the names are unfamiliar, the names of the organisations are unfamiliar. There are sort of power struggles between countries which have been going on for a very long time, which are extremely significant in all of this. And obviously, like right now, you've got Yemen and Saudi.
Right, so that's the thing. So people probably don't know about this, Jerry. They probably don't. I know the BBC have decided to start covering it like today because they heard people were going to talk about it.
It was quite annoying because we were going to come on here with the stance that like there are like 5,000 people contracting cholera in Yemen every day. Why are none of the mainstream media reporting this? And then they only went and fucking started reporting it.
But essentially, what they've not been reporting, so this has been happening since 2015, like March 2015 or thereabouts. So this has been going on for 2 years now. And essentially what's happened is, quick summary, the president stepped down and put the vice president in charge.
Yeah.
And the vice president wasn't loved by the Shiite rebel factor in Yemen. So they started warring against the newly elected government.
You had some military guys who still had allegiance to the previous president and whatever, and didn't think this guy was good for the country. So what are called the Houthi rebels kind of ousted him from the north, kicked him out of the capital of Sana'a by kind of barricading him in and surrounding him. He managed to escape. He's now set up like a proxy government in...
Well, first and foremost, he then left to, I believe, Saudi, but don't hold me now, but he left to one of his ally states, which are the strong, powerful Sunni Muslim states in the Middle East. So Saudi and the friends of Saudi, as we'll call them. But essentially,
Qatar were
Saudi, Qatar.
I just call them Qatar.
Yeah, in your face. But Saudi, Qatar, Egypt, Bahrain,
like Kuwait and stuff, staying neutral, aren't they?
But so, and essentially, he fled to them, and then they gave him a military air support for him to land boots back on the ground again, and they had air support to take out some hostile points that were held by the rebels, so he could then set up a government.
The UAE have supplied fighters and stuff like that.
But the UAE then, Saudi then started supplying boots on the ground as well. So this essentially went from they were going to supply air support so they could get landed to now they're going to supply troops. So there's now this weird scenario where we always talk about the Middle East as some place that needs all of our troops sent to defend. So say like fucking Syria. Nobody can fight in Syria, so they need us over there in Syria to help fight the battle for them. But right now, literally, all the countries in the Middle East are fighting their own battle with Yemen. In Yemen, that's not been fucking reported by anyone over here. I mean, are very, very, very little.
Well, Saudi have spent billions and billions of pounds bombing Yemen and being at war with them at the moment.
They've also weirdly, and this is what one of the defences will be, that they've spent billions and billions of pounds, or hundreds of millions certainly, on aid.
Yes.
But they also control what aid goes into the country. So, for example, I've spent £500 million worth of aid. Half of that has went to fruit and vegetables and half of that has went to rice. And then I've only allowed that half of that rice to go into the country. So it's smoke and mirrors. All you're doing is you're selling the fact that you're spending all this money on aid, but you're not really spending the money on aid. The other things what Gerry had mentioned when we started talking about Yemen was cholera. Every cunt in fucking Yemen has cholera, man. Like essentially, last year there was 200,000 people that had it, with 5,000 people every single day
contracting it. And it's because Saudi and
Saudi directly had desalination plants.
Yeah, so there are, I think there's about 24 million people in Yemen, and at the last count, about 15 million of them did not have access to a clean water supply.
But the UN had spoke to the British government about the fact that they were selling arms to Saudi, and Saudi were using those arms in Yemen to take out schools, to take out public buildings, to take out desalination places, to take out hospitals. They were taking out facilities that were essentially making the people worse off. And the UN told the British government that, and the British government ignored it, and then they still fucking 3.5 billion worth of arms they decided to sell to them this year. That piece of information came out in August or something last year. I've got all the details as ever on our website. But I mean that piece of information came out like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, something like that. And they just ignored it and still fucking kept on selling weapons to Saudi, who are still using them.
£3.5 billion pounds worth of weapons. We've granted them licenses and stuff during the course of this. So we are supplying the weapons that are being used to bomb Yemen at the moment, and we support Saudi. Like Saudi are our biggest ally probably in the Middle East.
We support Saudi.
The UK and the
Good.
US.
I'm glad you clarified that.
But yeah, and like Britain personally have we've basically made fucking far more money out of them, because we're giving aid to Yemen at the moment. I think we have given them like about 300 million or so in aid, but we have made 3.5 billion.
82% of the country's population needs urgent humanitarian aid.
Yeah.
In Yemen right now.
Of 24 million odd people.
Of 24 million, yes. And that is from the 27th of June this year, so that's a week old. Not even a week old.
Yeah.
And as I said, like it's so difficult, it's so harsh. Like, see, when you read this, like, we went into this to talk. We essentially went into this and we said, we're going to talk about Saudis and terrorism and their funding of terrorism. And then I discovered that there's a war going on in Yemen that's so horrendous it's not being fucking reported to by anyone. Like, we're not seeing the information on it.
Like the Arab Spring, the UK arms manufacturers and exporters, we sold 41.3 million worth of small arms, 7 million worth of ammunition, 34.3 million worth of armoured vehicles to Middle East and North African governments. In the 5 years that followed, annual sales rose to an average of 58.9, 14 million, 59.6 million, respectively. In Egypt, where Mubarak, when he was kicked out, it was a democratically elected government that came in there.
Who was that?
It was the Muslim Brotherhood, basically.
Muslim Brotherhood,
yeah, who were running the country. But then there was a military coup, and we had supplied massive amounts of small arms, ammunition, armoured vehicles. It went from 2.5 million up to 34.7 million when this happened. 2/3 of all British arms exports go to the Middle East. In the past 2 years, UK has agreed arms deals worth 388 million with the UAE, 170 million with Qatar, 120 million with Oman, 24 million with Bahrain. And in terms of Saudi, 83% of our arms exports, about £900 million worth, went to Saudi Arabia. And we have granted export licenses for more than 3.3 billion worth of aircraft. So our position seems to be, what, you need to stop fighting with all that stuff we sold you.
Well, see, it's worse. So, I mean, so the UN, right, said the UN's exact words are the unwarranted restrictions on the flow of commercial and humanitarian goods and services into Yemen and impeding distribution within the country are paralysing a nation that for far too long has been a victim of war. That was in April this year. So in April this year, the UN made it clear that they were impeding the distribution of humanitarian aid, and all we done was sold them more fucking guns, man. That's literally it. Like so the jets. I was going to say the jets if we sold them, and that I can't guarantee it was the jets if we sold them. Saudi jets blew up the desalination plant in the largest city in absolutely definitely in Yemen.
Saudi Air Force have been getting trained by British Aerospace, usually ex-RAF guys who have become military contractors for British Aerospace, training up the Saudi Air Force.
Well, that definitely happened roughly about 25 years ago.
Yeah, well, they signed a massive contract and it was big business, and lots of people left the RAF to go and do that. My father included. I was over there living when I was a kid in Saudi.
This is literally how we know that it's definitely happened a while ago.
So yeah, we have heavy involvement in what goes on out there, and we make a shitload of money out of it.
But then, why are we not being shown this? Why is this not being heavily reported on every day? This is a humanitarian crisis in a country. Is it because it's our allies that are doing the bad stuff?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's not gone totally unreported. Like the Guardian, like the usual suspects, man. The Guardian, the Independent talk about it. Daily Mail, etc.
The right wing. The people on the streets right now.
Who would know that Saudi and Yemen were at war?
Yes.
Probably a very significantly low percentage of people.
Exactly. But if
everybody knows about Syria.
Everybody knows about any time there's an issue between Israel and...
What people probably don't know about Syria is that is that we are involved in that as well. And
not just involved, we essentially created the monster that is...
I mean, yeah, but I actually found evidence today of a thing called it's Tim Timber Sycamore,
Timber Sycamore.
which is a CIA operation. And
Poorly named, may I add. Gone are the days of MK Ultra. Timber Sycamore.
But this is not the realms of complete conspiracy. I didn't read this on like fucking Infowars or anything. This is like been covered by.
You mean Alex Jones didn't shout this at your face needlessly?
It's been covered by the New York Times among others. But essentially, this operation has been CIA ran since 2013, and it involves
2012 to 2013, somewhere in that region.
It involves Saudi money and guns, etc. It involved the Qataris. It involved CIA supplying, and initially they were just training the Syrian rebels to fight against. His name just fell out of my head. Assad, and then they weren't allowed to directly provide equipment. But a few months after that, it was then amended to allow the CIA to both train and equip rebel forces. So yeah, Saudi have been involved in it. Qatar, Turkey, and Jordan.
So they were training them.
They were training,
and then they amended it so they could train them and then give them guns.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so and Qatar, Turkey, and Jordan have been covertly financing it. Saudi Arabia have provided billions of dollars in military equipment. And
how would you get the military equipment in?
Well, basically, been smuggling it through Jordan, which there was a big smuggling sort of history over. I think it's like south of Syria, fucking north of Jordan. I don't actually know.
You seem to know an awful lot about this, Gerry.
I wasn't.
What were you doing? What were you doing when you were over in the UAE for a
I have been to Jordan,
fine.
but no, I wasn't smuggling weapons
this time.
So they smuggled thousands of weapons, millions of rounds of ammunition. This is the Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, CIA, Jordan, but because of the nature of the fact that it had to go through Jordan, there's been a lot of
there's a lot of things that have went through Jordan.
Different Jordan. There's basically they had to sack a bunch of Jordanian intelligence agency guys because they were all of a sudden getting really rich.
Just shifting guns?
Yeah, just skimming a bit off the top, selling guns on. Again, this is all, we'll provide all the articles for this stuff. And yeah, they reckon, it's then basically finding its way into the black markets. You're talking about stuff like rocket-propelled grenades, mortared Kalashnikov assault rifles, anti-tank guided missiles, night vision goggles, pickup trucks, etc.
Essentially, when you see like ISIS on TV,
well, this is it.
With all the guns and rocket launchers and that.
Because it's finding its way on at the black market, people are then going to go around and sell it to, whoever they can shift it to. So
no, whoever they can shift it to. Literally, the only countries in the world that are buying weapons at war are people who are at war.
Yeah, they reckon this stuff's ended up in the hands of Al Qaeda. It's ended up with ISIS. So yeah, it's and there's a lot of proof that this stuff has happened.
I mean, you've got Syrian rebels who ended up as part of ISIS, you know what I mean, who ended up as part of Al Qaeda, who found their way to join these groups, you know what I mean, like disenfranchised rebels. These things happen. So the weapons were always going to make their way there.
Yeah, there's been like cables signed by Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State that were linked, reporting that Saudi donors were major support for the militant forces. Globally, some American officials worried that rebels being had ties to Al Qaeda. The Qatar thing that's going on at the moment it's been justified on the basis that, well, we're doing this because Qatar are funding terrorist organisations, but there's a lot of...
But they're not. I mean, or maybe they are, but they're no more than
Saudi.
Saudi. I mean, it does just kind of feel that we're just picking on Saudi, but it's only because they're essentially kings of this specific thing. So, actually, we should really focus on specifically this specific thing. We should talk about the reason that Saudi are at the centre of all this.
Well, yeah, so if you don't know much about Islam, it's split into two sects. It has, a bit of sectarianism going on in terms of you have the Sunnis and the Shiites. Now, the Sunnis, they believe that basically the Prophet Muhammad was the one true prophet. You don't worship anybody else, and his sort of successor comes from
democratically elected successor, essentially. I mean, we use the word democratic loosely, but essentially, yeah.
But Shiites, they also worship Ali and Hussein. Ali was the husband of Muhammad's daughter, basically, and they believe that Muhammad named him as his successor, and they also worship him. This means that the Sunnis kind of think that they are not following monotheism properly, that they're polytheists because they're worshipping more than one person, and that's something that Muhammad strictly forbade. So that happened in obviously
back in the
600s, yeah, 600s, and they split at that point, and they still don't get on because of it.
Weird thing though, because see the Sunnis, that's like Saudi and that.
So yeah, so
but then so the two largest Shiite countries in the Middle East were Iran
and Iraq.
And the two biggest enemies of the West in the Middle East are Iran and it was Iraq.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is the terrorist groups worship the religion that has nothing to do with Iran or Iraq. As in, they worship the Sunni side for the most part. Most of the groups worship the Sunni side of the religion.
Well, basically Islamic extremism is born out of Wahhabism, which is a very specific, extremely fundamentally zealot branch of Sunniism, which has inextricable links to the Saudi royal family going back to the 1800s.
So do you not then find it strange that, and I believe Syria were quite big on the Al-Shiite as well, so do you not find it strange that the biggest enemies
and also they reckon that Iran are supporting the Houthi rebels in Yemen because they are Shiite.
I mean, I will say that Iran
their official narrative is
they're
that
not.
They're not.
They support the elected government.
Also, Saudi's official narrative and the US's official narrative is that they are not
blowing up guns and fucking taking out desalination plants
or training up Syrian rebels.
Yeah. I think it's easy to say everybody's lying over that neck of the woods. But so anyway, the whole point I was just trying to make there is I find it awful strange that the two countries that were our biggest enemies were not actually the countries that are breeding the fundamental religious zealots that are fighting across the whole of the Middle East and are in fact the sectarian enemies of our allies who, for all intents and purposes, I'm not saying Iraq was wonderful and I'm not saying Iran's a great place either, but for all intents and purposes, Iran, the way that it's sold to us in the media and the way that Iran actually is are very different.
Yeah, I'm reading a book at the moment by Lewis something or other. I need to check what it is. No,
Carol?
She's a woman who rides motorbikes,
Lewis,
and she
the
the other year drove all the way through Iran on a bike, no bother, no hassle, was welcomed in and stayed in people's houses and shit, and just had a good time. And when you hear her talking about it, you're like, this is not how I imagined that Iran was at all. We kind of get the impression that it's a really closed society, but she sort of tells stories of going into folks' house. She basically says they're really subversive. They'll have a Quran, sitting on the mantelpiece, but you open it up and it's got a bottle of whiskey hidden in it and shit like that, Well, and I'm sure stuff like that probably goes on in Saudi as well. But the point that I was going to make is that Saudi actually runs its whole country, its law is on the basis of Wahhabism, which is why they fucking kill people. They are one of the biggest abusers of human rights in the world. They stone women for adultery. They cut people's hands off for stealing.
Just as a rule, Jerry, because I use it as a rule of thumb all the time now, is if you want to know who the biggest abusers of human rights are, it's a good bet to just look at who the UK sell weapons to.
Well, yeah. So do you have the figures to hand for that?
It's 34 of the top 50.
Ah, right, cool. So of the top 50
human rights violators, the ones with the lowest score,
we sell arms directly to 34 of them.
34 of them, yeah.
Cool, that's pretty good.
Not in any like direct order. It's not like the 34 worst.
Number 30. Yeah, we only the 34 worst ones qualify.
But yeah, of the top 50, we sell to 34.
Right. I wonder who the other 16 must be raging.
Oh fucking no! They just buy guns. They probably buy guns off of France, Russia, and America. The other three top trading weapons companies in the world.
Yeah. So we have all that going on in Saudi, and Wahhabism, like I was saying, it's inextricably tied to Saudi. The Ibn Saud, who basically united the country, went round beating all the tribes because he kind of got tied in with
beating all the tribes.
Yeah, like with
like a stick.
Well, in order, I think it was Abdulaziz Saud, right? Back in like the 1920s.
You just rolled that off your tongue there, like I think it was. Like just, you know, I was going. I think that's probably who it was. It was one of them.
He in the 20s he like united. Basically, what is all now Saudi was just loads of disparate regions.
Like nomadic tribe types.
Bedouin tribes and stuff. And I think I read somewhere that in the course of like uniting it or fucking bringing it under his fucking yoke, he killed like something like 40,000 people, and he amputated 200,000 people, like chopped off their hands or arms or whatever, in order to bring them all under control.
The boy lived to 89 as well.
Yeah.
Some great old age, man.
So and he done it all under the guise of Wahhabism. Now they stopped when it got to the. If you look at the geography of Saudi, the sort of only bits of that area that he didn't take what are like Bahrain, the UAE, Oman, etc. And these were all of the countries which came under British protection. He did not want to fuck with the British. So when the Wahhabis were like, no, we need to get these boys, because a lot of them are Shiites as well. Mm-hmm. We need to fucking get these guys as well. And he was like, nah, fucking kill the fucking...
That's okay. One day what we're going to do is we're going to have trade pacts with them. We were just going to get them to give us all the weapons, and we can murder every cunt in the Middle East for the rest of the time, and nobody held accountable for it.
But he allowed what's called the ulema, or ulema, I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, but it's like the sort of board of Islamic scholars and clerics who basically who decide what goes and what doesn't in the Islam world. They have the holy sites of Mecca and Medina in there, so Saudi has a lot of power.
They run the monopoly on Islam. I mean, essentially they hold the two main holy sites for all of Sunni. I think there's another one for Shiite that's not there as well. Yeah. There's three.
But they, people have to come there to do the Hajj, to do the pilgrimage. Yep. So they automatically have a lot of power in the Islamic world, and they have actually spent a lot of money promoting Wahhabism, because...
Just quickly, your numbers, when you were talking about how he was persecuting people back in the day, he was doing it, that's 40,000 public executions and 350,000 amputations.
Fuck, right, so it's even more.
That's a decent decent number.
So it was a pretty brutal fucking reign that entire country is built on bloodshed, essentially, and it's built on a doctrine of seriously extreme ideological Islam, and the laws over there are still on that side of things. It's ran by Wahhabi clerics, and actually, if you look back in 1979, there was a siege of Mecca. These boys came in, who were like really far. Basically, the Saudi laws were not far right enough for them.
They were extreme enough. They were extreme Saudis.
Yeah, because at that point,
snowboarded in.
At that point, they were showing like American TV and stuff. Or they were showing TV at all. Was like they weren't cool with that. The Saudi princes, like I think it was King Fahd and stuff, who were in then, were like
driving about Porsches and stuff.
Yeah, and going like over to France and Spain on holiday,
drinking
and
champagne at camels.
Yeah, and gambling and whoring and doing whatever, and they were like, nah, this is.
They were whoring.
Well, they were shagging whores.
Alright, so they weren't just like going over to France and selling their body for sex?
Well, they might have been.
Probably not. Oil was
libel.
Aye, that didn't happen.
So you can't chop my hands off, I'm in Scotland, mate. So...
That was Gerry.
So yeah, So because they weren't happy with the way things were going, and actually the dude who sort of who led this sort of rebellion, he had family history with Ibn Saud, because his grandfather was killed by Abdulaziz Saud in a skirmish like in the 30s, to sort of fucking cool some shit where they'd been going and like killing Shiites and stuff that they weren't supposed to.
So his grandfather was also incredibly extremist.
Yeah, but he harboured a bit of a grudge against the Saudi royal family because of this. So he gained like a bunch of followers, and on the turn of the Darur calendar, so the Islamic calendar's different to ours. It's based on lunar, so it's like 354 days in a year, and I think now they are in like the 15th century, basically. So it was the turn of the 14th century, or the move from the 14th to the 15th, or the 13th to the 14th, in November in 1979. And there's a prophecy in one of the hadiths, and hadiths are things that the prophets and stuff have said that the scholars look into. So that prophesizes the end times, and it's signalled by this guy called the Mahdi, who he's pure mental.
Which in Scotland, the end times is usually signalled by a
Mahdi
as
and
well. It means something so very different.
And the end times is just, it's time to get home.
Oh, fucking
Mahdi's turned up at the end.
Last orders. Mahdi shows up, fucking starts to cause grief.
But somebody who is like kind of light skinned and similar in looks to Muhammad, and they're described very specifically what they look like, and he had this guy who looked like this, so he was like, I'm gonna fucking use this
marketing.
Yeah, and the prophecy said that it would happen on the turn of the Islamic New Year, so he set all this up, and at that time there'll be loads of folk in doing their pilgrimage, doing their Hajj in Mecca.
I get the Mecca circle on the go.
Yeah, the circumambulation around the Kaaba. So they went in there with guns hidden in like coffins and stuff, because people take in coffins to get them blessed by the imams and shit. So they just like went in there with loads of guns and coffins, pulled them out.
Get the guns blessed?
No, I think they just fucking shot them in the air, locked the fucking gates, and they took siege of Mecca for 2 weeks, right? And there was like a bit of a fucking media blackout. In fact, if you want to fucking learn about this story, which is utterly amazing, and actually the book gives you so much information about Islam.
Oddly enough, the book gives you more information than Jerry's gave you about this story, which is hard to believe right now.
But it's by a guy called Yaroslav Trufimov. Is an investigative journalist. It's called The Siege of Mecca. It's an awesome book, and I would highly recommend you read it. But yeah, so there was a bit of a media blackout. Saudi basically cut all diplomatic ties with everybody, because they were like, fuck, this is going to make us look real bad, because we are like, supposed to be looking after Mecca, and look what the fuck's happened. And afterwards, when they eventually get it all sorted out, which you can read a little bit of that in the book, but the ulema, the ulema guys, the sort of guys on the Islamic Council were like, well, this is your fault, because you've let the country kind of go to rot with your fucking
whimsical ways,
your westernised, and your westernisation. So you need to give us more power and more money. And with the more power and more money they were given, they set up universities and fucking colleges in Pakistan and even in America, all over the world, spreading this very specific, extreme version of Islam.
Pakistan's weird, because Pakistan's also got a really high level of Shiite. Yeah.
But it also has a really high level of fucking madness, and like there's people fucking blowing themselves
citation needed.
But no, there's a lot of fucking terrorism and stuff going on there. Well, terrorism in inverted commas, but
terrorism stuff and stuff going on in
like
Pakistan as a rule.
Like, yeah, there's like fucking suicide bombers and fucking all sorts of shit pretty much every day in fucking Pakistan.
Man, we have literally shagged the world. See, when you get to the Eastern Bloc across, and even then that's been nice, but you get to the Eastern Bloc across till you get to like fucking China, literally everywhere in that area has been absolutely shagged by the Western Allies to a point that's like, it's fucking in disarray all the time.
Big style. But yeah, that specific point in time has led to the spread of Wahhabism all around the world, and all of these fucking terrorists are following a Wahhabist extreme fundamentalist ideology. So if anybody is responsible for terrorism around the world, like, Saudi have a lot to answer for, is what I'm saying.
I am making a face. Now, to give you an idea, and I actually do have this list that I'll be able to provide. You have Al-Qaeda, you have Boko Haram, you have Hamas, you have Islamic State of Iraq, so ISIL/ISIS/ any variant of that. You have the Tehrik Taliban in Pakistan, and you have the Jemaah Islamiyah, maybe said that wrong, but all of them are they're the most predominant murderers, if you will. They're the most predominant terrorist organisations that have the largest amount of kills accredited to them, and all of them are all Sunni Wahhabi Islamists, all of them. The only one that is on level or certainly falls under the same scenario is Hezbollah, who are Shiite. Hezbollah are more of a internal fighting against only Muslim type scenario. I mean, very rarely is there clashes between Hezbollah and Western forces, for example, in the grand scheme of things, especially in comparison to the other groups that were listed there.
Yeah.
So essentially what Gerald was saying is...
Gerald.
I
got my Sunday name.
You see that? Well, essentially what he's saying is technically true, that if you take the largest accredited terrorist organisations who are affiliated with Islam, and you look at their following of Islam, it's Wahhabi Sunnis.
And it's also what these people do, and what the sentiments that they express is it's Wahhabism, man. It's extremist. It's fundamental.
But what I mean is actually officially on paper, like as far as they even claim to be.
But I mean, even like the individuals, you know, the lone wolf types who are doing stuff in Britain and whatever, the ideology that they're following by doing what they're doing, because, you know, we hear a lot that Islam is a religion of peace, right? And it is a religion of peace if it's followed by fucking decent people, but so is Christianity, and it's been responsible for a lot of
done throughout history.
Yeah, it's been responsible for a lot of violence, and people use it to justify violence because they're assholes. But they would be, you know, considered to be fundamentalist Christians. Like the KKK would be considered to be a fundamentalist Christian organisation.
Also the worst cereal.
Yeah, Special K is not much better though. I would probably rather eat bits of KKK members than Special K if I had a choice. So I mean, I seem to be doing weird stuff right here at the present moment, but the reason what I'm doing what I'm going to call here like speedy math, because I'm going to do that. I'm going to divide that by that. Oh, right, he's done.
So you're talking about, at the very most, so there's about 6 billion Muslims.
No,
there's not.
There's about 1.7 billion, or between 1.5 and 1.7 billion.
Yeah, there's 6 billion people.
You're gonna have to do that fucking maths again.
No, scale. I can just do that. Watch, you can go divide by 4 should give me it roughly. So at the very most, because right. So follow this. If you take all the Muslims, about 3/4 of the Muslims are Sunni.
I would say it's about 80%.
But the numbers depend. The numbers that are printed on.
But they reckon there's between 13 and 15% Shiite. But they would say that they can be much more confident about the number of Muslims there are in the world, because people fill that out on like census information to say that they're Muslim or whatever. But most countries don't have information on the sect they're in.
So they reckon that roughly about 25%, essentially 3/4 of the Muslims in the world are Sunni.
Right.
And then they reckon about 2% of that
Are Wahhabis.
So that means that there's like 20 million at the most Wahhabi Muslims in the world. So when people talk about, like, I know that's still a big number, but when people talk about...
It's 2% of the total of Muslims.
No, even though it's 2% of...
The total of Sunni Muslims.
Sunni Muslims.
Right, so it's even less.
It's actually less. So that's what I mean. So if you actually then take that number as about 20 million, you spread it across the whole of the world, it's such a tiny amount. And then if you take into account most of that is actually concentrated in the Middle East. Yeah. So like when people are talking about things like Muslims out in the streets who become radicalised and stuff like that, the number that actually practice the most radical version of Islam that are in like the UK and in the US and in France and stuff is tiny, man. It's a tiny amount of people.
Yeah, and if you want to fight the war on terrorism, it's an ideological fight that you need to fight. Like, it's about educating people or trying to teach this out of people.
And you can't shoot religion away.
No, because
a t-shirt.
Or you can't bomb religion or democracy into people either. Although the America and fucking UK,
their fucking darndest.
Yeah. So. Like, if you shoot a fucking guy for being a fucking Islamic fundamentalist, you've just made all his children fucking Islamic fundamentalists as well.
That's the thing. It's essentially, it's like the whole Hydra thing. It's like, we cut one head off and then two heads grow back. Like, if you... One man's fucking terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, do you know what I mean? One man's fucking dead terrorist is another man's martyr. Like, essentially, for every time that you kill a guy who is... Especially if you do it in the Middle East. So see if, like, right now in Yemen, for example.
Don't go killing people in the Middle East, kids.
Don't go killing people in Yemen. That's another t-shirt.
I'm going to Yemen.
But like, you've got essentially Sunni Muslims fighting Shiite Muslims and fighting over the country in Yemen at the present moment and torturing everyone. All that's happening is anytime one of the sides get killed, you're bringing more people on board to fight against that war. That's just what's happening. Just like Hamas fighting in Israel, like that's never going to fucking fix itself. And while we're on that subject, remember we have spoke about we support essentially Sunni Muslims, and Hamas are Sunni Muslims, and they are supported by Saudi. We know this. Yeah. So Saudi and Qatar, or whatever you call it, Qatar, whatever you want to call it.
Qatar. So are you? I think what you're about to verbalise is that we are supporting Israel
and Hamas. By proxy, Hamas.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we see on the news that there's two groups of people fighting. Oh, Hamas are firing RPGs. They are British and American RPGs that get fucking fired into Israel.
If I was looking at it with a big fucking tinfoil hat on, I might say to myself that it actually massively benefits the UK and the US to have all these people constantly at war with each other.
The US is the largest weapons salesperson in the world, and then the UK is the second.
And they sell
to all of those countries.
Yeah, so it's not peace would not be profitable for us.
There's
no profit in peace, boys. We gotta fight some more.
Do you know? There's another thing that's quite interesting. See when the shit went down in Qatar, which we're going to get back to in a second, or Qatar, or Qatar,
Quater oats.
The price of oil went up massively.
Gas, must have been gas surely.
So about gas. So did anything happen just before shit went down in Qatar that might be linked, if you will?
Well, yeah. Qatar announced that they were going to be developing oil field, which they'd had gas field, the largest gas field in the world actually, which they share with Iran.
Iran?
Yes.
The baddies?
Oh yeah, the Shiites. And they had a moratorium on it for 12 years, hadn't developed it, and they announced that they would be kind of working with Iran to develop this gas field and bring a lot more gas online in the next 5 to 7 years.
Largest gas field in the world, is that right?
Largest gas field in the world. And now all the neighbouring countries to Qatar around there who are cash rich are all, it's an oil economy basically. Saudi has the world's largest reserves of oil, and Qatar has fucking shitloads of gas basically. So while Saudi, UAE, Bahrain, all of these countries are all based on oil. Qatar's based on gas, and that allowed them a fair amount of autonomy and independence from Saudi, which Saudi doesn't really like that much.
Well, Qatar are also per capita the richest country in the world.
Yeah.
So like
a per capita annual income of $130,000 per citizen.
that's decent.
It's alright, aye.
It's decent. So the problem is then Saudi are richer than everyone in the Middle East, apart from Qatar.
Yeah. I don't know what like GDP terms. I imagine Saudi would be bigger because it's a much larger country, but Qatar are the only people who can compete with them, and they have a lot of power in regards to the media. Because
there's a known media outsource from
Al Jazeera is ran out of Qatar.
So, see, for those who possibly don't know, the reason that ties were severed with Qatar had nothing to do with the new gas fields that they had created with Iran. Had nothing to do with that. That was coincidence. But what happened was Al Jazeera started showing on it.
Well, there's
officially,
okay.
Al Jazeera started showing on it that the man in charge of Qatar, the president, there's no president, he's the...
It's a sheikh, Emir, I think he's an Emir, actually.
Is like a fucking fan of Iran. I mean, essentially, it said things like that across the bottom of the screen. Like, he is all about Iran, he is all for supporting... He's all for not being involved in Yemen, that type of shit. Do you know what I mean? Essentially, it said slanderous things about his affiliations towards certain things like allies in war. Now,
he said that Trump was failing because of the Russia investigation. And he said
he was a fan of Iran.
Yeah, and
an Iran fan,
and of like Shiites and stuff like that.
A big Shiite fan. Now, what he then came out and said, I didn't say that, that's all a lie, Al Jazeera's been hacked.
Yes.
And Sky News kept on running the story without pointing out
that he said
he'd been hacked. They just kept on running the story as this is what happened. And Saudi had like experts available instantly as soon as it happened. And essentially Qatar are saying Saudi and the UAE.
Well, within 20 minutes of it being on Al Jazeera, now they didn't show footage of it because, well, he's saying he didn't say it. It came along
like a scrolling bar.
Like a ticker, yeah. And yeah, his name is Qatar. What's his name? Fucking Al Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. So
those have your tongue,
it does, aye. So he says that he never said it, and it came along at the bottom on a ticker. And within 20 minutes of it appearing on there, the UAE and Saudi like national TV channels, all like they had experts ready to fucking denounce what Qatar were saying, and fucking broadcast all this stuff, basically calling them out, saying it was a ridiculous thing for them to say, blah 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 blah, and how offended they were, etc. etc.
I mean, he stated the state of Qatar has been subjected to a campaign of lies that have reached the point of complete fabrication. It reveals a hidden plan to undermine the state of Qatar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a direct quote from him.
Yeah, and actually the FBI and British intelligence have backed up that it was a hack, that it didn't happen. They're investigating to try and find out who it was. They think, again, Russians are getting the blame in this, or certainly it was people who wanted to look like they were doing it from Russia. Because it came from a .ru.
Didn't you say our boys at Cambridge Analytica?
I don't know. No, I do not think that, Cambridge Analytica. Please don't sue me. Yeah.
I was asking, do you think that, Jenny?
I don't think it. I don't know. I really don't. And even if I did, I would say I didn't. But no, definitely not. So yeah, despite Qatari denials, Sky News Arabia and Al Arabiya kept running a discredited story, prompting complaints of questionable journalism at the channels. But yeah, Qatar have basically said how come they were so well prepared for this, and have essentially accused, without saying it in blatant terms, have accused the UAE and Saudi of organising this hack on them in order to further their own gains. Now, some other things happened leading up to this.
Well, it's weird, just quickly, because Iran came out and Iran actually came out and said the era of cutting diplomatic ties and closing borders is over. This will no way resolve the crisis. Iran have essentially stepped out and said, even if you do think this is the case, just putting fucking sanctions on the country and no fucking doing it doesn't fix anything.
Oh,
Iran are the voice of reason in this scenario.
I know, and they've actually, the sort of list of demands that they have put to Qatar in the wake of this are pretty mental, really. We'll go through them in a minute. But something else that had happened in the run up to this. So you've got the gas thing. You have the hacking, which sort of kicked it all off. But prior to that, and one of the reasons that Qatar are being accused of funding terrorism is that there was an issue whereby members of the Qatari royal family were abducted in the southern Iraqi desert about 18 months ago. And in March,
This was a Shiite group, wasn't it?
It was a Shiite, Irani group, actually. They operate in Iraq, but they have Iranian funding. So something that I don't think we mentioned is that, okay, we mentioned that Iran have been accused of backing the Houthi rebels in Yemen. They also back Assad, they back Syria because he's the kind of allies, Iran and Syria as well. Whereas Qatar, we have seen that they have been fighting alongside Saudi, etc., on behalf of the displaced president against the Houthi rebels, and they were also involved in Operation Timber Sycamore.
Operation giving guns to the terrorists.
Alongside Saudi in both of those occasions. So, they've been working together. So I don't understand how it's believable that all of a sudden Saudi are like, nah, they're funding terrorism. Try to distance themselves from them and blame them for everything.
Yeah, I mean, right now, so there's a couple of things that we didn't touch on when we started talking about this.
I need to talk about the hostage situation.
Yeah, but all I'm going to get to is that we have right now in the UK, there's a Home Office report that keeps on getting pushed back.
Yes.
Which is about Saudi's involvement with funding terrorism and the knock-on effect of us fundamentally funding terrorism by giving weapons and training to Saudi, and not just Saudi, but Saudi is one of them. So right now it's within Saudi's best interest to have a scapegoat, to have a incredibly rich, powerful country that has got ties to their enemies in the form of Iran and stuff like that they can say it's been them that are doing all the bad and it has nothing to do with us, and point the spotlight somewhere else.
Yeah, and this Home Office inquiry, right? It was agreed in 2015 that it would be done, and it was part of the Tories managed to win Liberal Democrat support for further bombing in Syria in order to get it voted through Westminster. In order for them to agree to vote for it, they promised in this report.
Summer 2016, I believe.
It was 2015.
No, it was summer 2016. It was to be.
It was to be released. That's
so
right.
That's a year ago.
Yeah, and yeah, Corbyn during the general election was saying that after the terror attacks in Manchester and London, Theresa May had said that UK needed to have some difficult conversations. And Corbyn says, you need to start with Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states that funded and fueled extremist ideology. It's no good, Theresa May, suppressing a report into the foreign funding of extremist groups. So, and Tim Farron for the Liberal Democrats also said that she needed to publish the report. It's been fucking held back, and there's actually talk that it may never be published because it's going to affect national security, etc., etc. So you have to ask yourself, what
Are they hiding?
Yeah.
Well, we know what they're hiding. I mean, it's essentially what we spoke about here. It's the direct and completely unadulterated funding of terrorism in the Middle East for the last fucking 15, 20 years by the UK and the US.
And it's going to be difficult for them to justify being allies with Saudi Arabia if they release this report. But there's so much money tied into the US economy and the UK economy via Saudi.
When this stuff kicked off with Qatar, the 2 weeks before it, the US president had done a major defence contract with Saudi Arabia worth 110 billion, which was set up an anti-extremist institute as well.
Yeah, this was at the Riyadh summit in May, which everybody was at. Yeah,
that's when he touched the big lone ball.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah, it's a belter of a picture.
It's one of those things that you'll never forget. But you should always ask why. But anyway, that's a different issue.
So
the Iranians kidnapped the Qataris.
Yeah, it was an Iraqi group funded by Iranians, but they had members of the Qatari royal family who were over hunting in the desert, doing falconry and stuff like that, trying to catch falcons.
I take it it's weird. That's not what falconry is. You don't try and catch falcons.
No. But you hunt them to catch them to then tame them.
Do you not get them flown? They actually get them flown over in planes.
Yeah, but you need you can hunt other falcons with your falcons, but you could also at some point you want to catch falcons too. Otherwise, if you don't have the falcons, then you can't do falcons.
No, but so
it was a hunting trip.
Alright, cool. We're kind of going off subject here, but I'm pretty certain that
abducted a party of well-armed falcon hunters.
I know, but I think they're falcon hunters, as in they use falcons to hunt. Because
well, maybe.
The only reason I know this is because Qatar Air fly fucking falcons in their first class.
Well, I know about falconry, but I was watching a thing, they have to catch them and then they keep them tied to a thing with the wee hoods on for ages until they get tamed and stuff as well.
I know they definitely fly them over from the UK. There's a breeder in the UK that flies them over in the first class of Qatar Airlines. That's actually a thing.
Fucking bonkers, man. Right. So yeah, the kidnapped hunters were held
good falcon chat there
for 16. That's niche. That's niche.
People tune in for the politics.
Not another falcon newscast.
Falcon newscasters.
Those falcon newscasters. Anyway, so they were held as pawns, basically, while the ransom negotiations were going on, and it's alleged that Qatar paid around $1 billion to
the DUP
to two separate terrorist organisations in order to get them back. Now, I suppose one of them being Kitab Hezbollah, who are an Iraqi Shiite militia controlled by Iran, and some other mob who I don't have the name of just here, but they were a Sunni sort of Syrian kind of IS type scenario.
So paid them both.
Paid them both.
Those two don't seem like they would be in any way, shape, or form.
Well, yeah, and part of it as well was to
like a broker deal.
There was like a sort of Shiite couple of villages in Syria that were circled by Sunni forces, and part of the deal was to allow them to be bussed out and moved to a different place. So there's talk about that, being bad for Syria long term because they're actually dividing the country in sectarian lines territorially. So
can you imagine a country that's got like a divided sectarian lines and stuff like that across it?
Well, if you look at when India was split up by the British, they put initially they had India and West Pakistan, East Pakistan, and West Pakistan was what is Pakistan now, and East Pakistan is Bangladesh, or vice versa. No, that's right, isn't it?
West was
Pakistan. But so they were not even connected by land. There was a big bit of India in the middle, but they were the same country. That was how they decided to do it. But what happened was the Pakistanis persecuted the Bangladeshis. They killed. There was a bigger genocide in the Holocaust in the 70s, and then there was the Indians went up and liberated Bangladesh, and Bangladesh became an independent country. But basically what I'm trying to say is that when Indian subcontinent was divided, the sort of country lines ended up being split up based on religion in much the same way as what happened in the wake of Yugoslavia breaking down and stuff as well, with like Serbia and Bosnia and all that. They've kind of more or less been split
There's
up.
another good example of when it went well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like fucking genocide, left, right, and centre as well. So
we say there's probably going to be genocide in Syria.
It looks like they could be setting themselves up for civil war in the future.
They may be possibly looking at it right now.
I mean, they have civil war right now.
Say, they may be looking at it right now going like, it can't be any fucking worse.
But yeah, so that whole deal is one of the reasons that they're saying, you know, Qatar is funding terrorism, because it literally has given money to terrorist organisations.
I know, but
it was trying to get its royal family members back.
Well, I mean, like, it's a bit of the old pot calling the kettle black there with Saudi saying that anyone who's funded anything, it's a bit terroristy.
But this is provable and documented, and I suppose that's the difference, isn't it? I mean, we could maybe have proof and documentation if the government actually published the report, but they don't seem to be too keen on that.
I promise you that in the event that report comes out, me and Jerry are going to go through that document page by page and word by word.
With a fine-tooth comb.
Yep.
So yeah, what else? Oh, we I know this is off subject, but Rupert Murdoch and his Sky takeover that he's trying to do. He currently owns like 37% of it, and he's trying to get all of it. And
the British government said we're probably going to have to talk to the competition committee about that, because
well, I think they already have had an investigation or whatever, but they're now saying we want to look into it for another 6 months, which I don't know, if they'd have won that election based on his support, you think it would all have been a bit more rosy? I don't know. I
think it would have been. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to the idea that it's about time we can just accept the fact that the current running government and the direct billionaires that they're affiliated with that control the media are all corrupt bastards. I know that's libel, but it's true.
John Prescott apparently said that Murdoch stormed out of the
I read it. I seen the tweet.
Party whenever it was like the election party, the Times, Sun, whatever, News Corp, fucking election party. When he saw the exit polls, he fucking stormed out without speaking to anybody. He was raging. I
can imagine. So just quickly, so that's us kind of covered the Middle East for the most part.
I think so. I mean, you could talk about it all day.
Yeah, I know, but what we essentially tried to bring is there is when we're talking about terrorism, kind of give you a background of where terrorism's coming from, what terrorism actually means in the Middle East, what that means to what we're fighting at the present moment, and what we're not fighting at the moment.
Yeah, there is something. I wanted to go through the demands that Saudi and the UAE have put on Qatar in order to sort of fucking resolve this whole conflict. So yeah,
it's mad shit, isn't it? It's like, you know.
Well, one of the things is they want to shut down Al Jazeera entirely.
But like the most successful Eastern fucking news outlet.
Basically on the basis that sometimes you say things that we don't like. Now, I mean, I guess, but it's exactly the same. It'd be the same as like the UK saying to Russia, "Stop Russia today, because you're making us look fucking foolish."
You just keep telling people all the bad things that we're doing.
And I guess they're kind of not really used to free speech and stuff in the same way that we are in the Western world.
I mean, I will say Al Jazeera is a very westernised media for the Middle East. And
I don't doubt that Qatar will be using it to push whatever their agenda is. But, you know, the problem that the Saudis and UAE have is that it's extremely popular amongst like the Arab population, so people are watching it. They're watching it because they obviously like the product that they're getting, you know.
I think the danger is it's also very popular amongst the Western world and stuff as well. Like there's a lot of people use it as for news source and stuff that's happening in the Middle East.
For over there.
So like for example, the people who are most likely to report what's happening in Syria and Yemen and stuff are Al Jazeera, right? The BBC can be told not to, and Fox and Sky and stuff can be told not to, because that all comes through money and oil and, you know what I mean, they become resources. But Al Jazeera are just reporting it from essentially their home country about their neighbouring countries. You know what I mean? And if we can then see it, we can then see what's happening over there from a non-Western controlled news source. You know
and from an Arab perspective.
Yeah.
So demands on Qatar. Number one, close Al Jazeera and its affiliate stations. We've covered that. Close the Turkish military base in Qatar and terminate the Turkish military presence in any joint military cooperation with Turkey inside Qatar. Now, Turkey have actually supplied, after this happened, have supplied
10,000 troops.
And I read a report today on Al Jazeera. I believe that they had sent more troops.
Well, at least 10,000 anyway.
Yeah. So that's going on. Turkey are backing Qatar in this. And there's been.
I wonder why Saudi have such an issue with Turkey.
Shiite.
Is it though?
I don't know. That's what I was going to ask you.
I thought Turkey had their own sect almost.
I think actually from my reading, my understanding, is that there are what's his name? Erdogan has a lot of sympathies with Muslim Brotherhood. He kind of supports them and their ideas. And one of the reasons that the Muslim Brotherhood are so disliked by Saudi and a lot of the sort of ruling Arab countries over there that have sheikhs, emirs, etc., is because the Muslim Brotherhood are against hereditary rule of a country. Yeah, they sort of believe in like democracy or whatever, like they do. So.
It's just, but you understand why I find it funny though.
Well, I find it funny that like Erdogan is pretending that he believes in democracy as well. But no, 1,000.
They're Sunni, by the way, in Turkey.
Right. They 1,000 Turkish soldiers to Qatar.
1,000 more.
1,000 in total. I don't believe they sent 10,000. I believe that they're talking. It's going to be 1,000 altogether over there. I don't know what they're got a day really, but hey ho. So yeah, close the Turkish military base, reduce ties to Iran, only trade and commerce with Iran that complies with US and international sanctions will be permitted. Now, that's basically don't have your gas.
Don't have your gas field and make more money that we don't have any control over the gas and let Iran have money from gas.
Yeah, and yous have more power than us, potentially, because you're wealthier than us.
Iran, those gas bastards.
Yeah. So that definitely seems to be a big part of it. Expel any members of the IRGC and cut off military and intelligence cooperation with Iran. IRGC, I believe, are Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Branch of Iran's armed forces. Qatar must announce it is severing ties with terrorist, ideological and sectarian organisations, including the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, which is ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah and Jabhat Fateh al-Sham, formerly Al-Qaeda's branch in Syria. Surrender all designated terrorists in Qatar and stop all means of funding for individuals, groups or organisations that have been designated as terrorists. Qatar should stop interfering in the four countries' domestic and foreign affairs and having contact with their political opposition. Stop granting citizenship to wanted nationals from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt and Bahrain. Revoke Qatari citizenship for existing nationals.
Stop granting citizenship to people from Saudi?
Wanted nationals, so like people who are...
So like someone who flees Saudi, those crazy bastards in Qatar say to them, you can be a citizen here because we're not going to let you have your hands cut off for stealing a Mars bar or some crazy shit.
Or, being in political opposition to the king or
like,
something.
oh, I heard you were raped and now they want to stone you to death. No, you can become a citizen.
Well, I'm not sure that Qatar have the greatest human rights record either. I've been there, you're not even allowed to hold hands or shit.
Just with strangers?
You can hold hands with guys. Weirdly, a lot of guys walk about holding hands over there, or like holding pinkies. It's like a cultural thing, but you're not allowed to hold hands with a woman, God forbid.
Liberace.
Revoke Qatari citizenship for existing nationals where such citizenship violates those countries' laws. I don't even know what that means.
Well, you said words there that fucking actually shut off after about 3 words. What was that?
Revoke Qatari citizenship for existing nationals where such citizenship violates those countries' laws. I'm guessing they mean
Right, so it's from the previous,
Saudi Arabia.
Essentially, in the event someone has left Saudi and came to Qatar, they've been given citizenship, they now have to revoke it.
How's this for a belter of a line? Payment of reparations for years of alleged wrongs.
Alleged wrongs? Just wrongs like...
Pay up, bitch. I'm alleging that you were wrong.
Pay us money because allegedly you were wrong.
Otherwise, sanctions.
Oh, what was that wrong? Things you were wrong.
Monitoring for 10 years. Whatever the fuck that means. That's from a Reuters article. And yeah, align itself with other Gulf and Arab countries militarily, politically, socially and economically, as well as on economic matters, in line with an agreement reached with Saudi Arabia in 2014.
Those words economically came up there at least twice. I think this is mostly to do with money.
Yeah.
This is mostly to do with money.
Make sure that we're making
more money than you.
Yeah, making those big dollars.
Align ourselves economically. You have too much money and we can't control you.
You have too much money from gas and with Iran, so stop it.
We don't know anything about gas, so we're oil guys. So them, not us.
Yeah, I mean me too.
No,
and gas. I'm gas at the minute.
Yeah, I know.
I'm flexible.
And Iranian.
Yeah, I hide it well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if there's been anything else overly exciting in the news.
Well, there's been quite a lot of exciting, but like I'll be honest, there was in the aftermath of the general election, I had to fucking take a week off of reading too much shit because I was just like I was burnt out with news.
Well, this week I obviously started studying on this. Read about Yemen, lay in bed and cried for 2 days because it turns out the fucking...
Yemen sucked.
Aye man, there's fucking, like literally, everybody's get fucking...
Did you see like some of the videos of the wee malnourished kids and shit?
It's fucking brutal,
awful,
man. Like it's absolutely
like
horrendous. That's what I mean. Like
kids
genuine.
being born like dying of malnutrition. It's pretty...
5,000 people are getting cholera every day. Every day.
I think it's like, it's due to be one of the biggest cholera outbreaks like
in
ever.
history.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the antibiotics to stop the cholera are being stopped by Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Flat. The UN have said definitely the antibiotics that could stop this cholera are being stopped by Saudi Arabia. So this is an engineered cholera outbreak. As in, I'm not saying that they made it happen, but they're allowing it to happen.
Well, it's a siege, is what it is. Rather than
a siege for what?
Well, to win it back for the the sort of president who, like, in fairness, right, the president guy is the UN recognised leader of the country.
Yes, he's also the legal leader of the country, as in he was the vice president. The president stepped down and he was given the role as president.
And what Saudi and the rest of the sort of allied Gulf countries are doing is
killing all the civilians.
Well, yeah, I know, but they're on the face of it, they're doing it to reinstall the UN recognised leader of the country.
Yeah, because he's going to be him.
Yeah.
Sitting in a country full of dead people.
Well, and what I was saying about a siege is in, like, rather than they've kind of got to the point where rather than engaging in direct warfare, they've just fucking used that old fashioned fucking siege mentality of, well, we've fucking cut off their fucking food supply in the waters, because as well as like the 15 million who don't have a clean supply of water, there's like
82% of the country that needs humanitarian aid.
Yeah, and I think there's like, it was about 65% of the country who are food I can't remember what the exact term was, but they're food insecure. Yeah, so
everybody keeps on it,
so
food judging it.
I'm a bit food insecure. Like, I look at it and I think I shouldn't eat that, but I want to. Yeah, so they're starving them out and diseasing them out, basically.
Yeah, but they're starving and diseasing.
I know, civilians.
The civilians.
But it's in the hope that the civilians will turn on the fucking, the sort of military control.
But the only problem, I would argue that the only way that works is if
they're strong enough to fight.
No, if they're not right. If Saudi and that are right and the militants are being propped up by Iran, then the fact that they're starving the populace isn't going to make any difference to the food supplies that they're getting from Iran.
Yeah, but there's people aren't getting enough food, they're not getting enough water. I'm not.
No. But what I'm saying is, if the militants are getting enough food, like so, if the rebels,
they don't give a fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the rebels are getting food and water and weapons, in fact, you can actually almost create a dangerous scenario where you make people heroes. If the militants then start producing food and antibiotics and water from their allies, then they become heroes in the country.
They're just like, no matter what happens, the civilians are not fucking winning in this situation. They're the ones who are getting fucking shafted because of, both sides of this fucking.
Well, I see it. We're probably going to see that Qatar's going to be next as well.
Well, I hope not, because my mate lives there.
It's very self-centred, Jerry, that attitude.
Actually, a few of my mates live there, but like Johnny, Johnny
Yeah.
Owen. Actually, I spoke to him a couple of days ago, to get his.
Can we send him Snapchats of like eating beans and stuff like that?
Well,
take antibiotics.
Weirdly enough, most of their food supplies usually come from Saudi, and they're now coming from Turkey. And he's like, the food quality's just got way better. Like the fruit and veg and stuff that we're getting is like really improved.
It's working out for him.
And he also was sort of saying that it's amazing the level of support for the Emir in the country. Like everybody's driving around with like there's a sort of iconic picture of him that is like a sort of national icon, but everybody's got it on all their cars and shit now. Sort of saying, we're behind you, dude. Please don't kill us. I don't know, they might be saying that, but they're definitely saying we're behind you, dude. Whether that's because they're scared of him or because they genuinely are, I don't know.
But so the populace support the Prime Minister?
Of Qatar.
Oh, of Qatar, sorry. I was backing you in there for a minute.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's good. That's good that they support him, because I don't think he's done anything wrong here.
No, they are. He's just looking after his own country, really, isn't he? Anyway, yeah, so thanks for listening. I hope we've given you a wee bit more information than you had before about exactly what was going on in the Middle East at the moment, because I certainly, before I started researching this, was pretty oblivious to exactly what was going on with Qatar, and was massively oblivious to what was going on with Saudi and Yemen.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's been an eye-opener for me. I wasn't surprised, to be honest, to learn that the CIA were training and supplying weapons to the Syrian rebels, but I was kind of amazed that it had been documented in the press so blatantly, but I don't know, it doesn't seem to be a massive deal. It's
another thing that's just it doesn't get looked at, do you know what I mean? So right now the Syrian rebels are terrible. The Syrian rebels are, they're good, it depends on what day it is and stuff. It depends on who they're killing that day. But Syrian rebels are something, but what nobody talks about is the Syrian rebels are in fact just our trained operatives in Syria.
Yeah.
Because that's fundamentally what they are.
Yeah. And that must have been sanctioned on some level by President Obama. Who's meant to be the good guy.
Well, it definitely was. I mean, President Obama signed the presidential bit to do that. Certainly, that's what it states. As ever, all our information is going to be on our website, all our documents, all our everything.
What is that website, Paul?
www.notanotherfakenewscast.com.
Yeah, we're also on at PGMcast on Facebook, at PGMcast on Twitter, and www.patreon.com/PGMcast.
Yep. We also have a TeePublic store. If you search for PGMcast, you can buy some sweet pig t-shirts. I mean, I've got my lovely pig t-shirt and I love it.
And if you enjoy our theme tune, it is still available to buy. You can get onto
Bandcamp.
The Bandcamp for Great and Small Doses, our mate Kev O'Malley. That you can get that through the website too. So thanks for listening, guys, and peace out from me.
Absolutely. See you later on, guys. Thanks very much. Bye bye.